I wish I knew this about flood insurance sooner. Hey guys, I'm Megan Dietsch and welcome to Rutherford County Revealed. Today we are sitting down with Jason Connor. Jason is an Army veteran and the owner of Connor Insurance Group. Jason, thank you so much for sitting down with us today, and thank you so much for your service and your sacrifice to our country. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So I hear that you are the flood insurance guru. So what can you tell us about flood insurance and how it can affect the homeowner and potential homeowners?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. Hi. So flood insurance. First and foremost, let me put the big myth to rest. Every home in Tennessee is in a flood zone. Whether that's a high-risk flood zone or a low-risk flood zone, which will determine if it's required in your mortgage, but every home is in a flood zone. And you can still buy flood insurance, Megan, even though you're not in a flood zone or if it's not being required. But everything is laid out in my book as well. Obviously, it's a huge financial impact. We saw that in Waverly about 2 years ago, which was a low flood zone, and we saw what happened there. So that proves my point that you still need flood insurance. Well, it would absolutely financially ruin you if you lived in Waverly or have an experience like Waverly. So it's absolutely highly recommended that you speak to whoever your insurance agent is and talk about the options of flood insurance, because there are options whether you go through FEMA or private market.
Oh, so Jason, can you tell us exactly what the definition of flood insurance is?
Great question, Megan. Thank you so much. This is the number one thing that most people don't understand. Flood insurance is simply defined as rising water that affects 2 or more homes or 2 or more acres of otherwise dry land that is inundated with water or mud flow. That's it, cut and dry, straight from FEMA. So if you think about that, outside rainwater getting your house, that's not flood insurance, and your homeowners is not going to cover that either, because simply outside rainwater should not get in your house.
That's true.
A lot of people also can get it confused where if a pipe breaks in their house, as we're in the winter months, is that flooding my house? No, that would go on your homeowner's insurance. For flooding, it has to fit 2 or more acres or 2 or more homes of otherwise dry land. So just your house, that's not flood. You and your neighbors, that is flood insurance. And if you don't have flood insurance, your homeowner insurance won't pick it up either. So that's why I always recommend, regardless of where you live in Tennessee, I always recommend buying flood insurance. It is super cheap if you're not in a high-risk flood zone, probably of around $500 a year for the average home in Middle Tennessee.
Oh, that's a lot lower than I thought it was going to be.
Very, very cheap.
Yeah. So Jason, can you tell us the difference between FEMA and private market insurance?
Yeah, so great question, Megan. Thanks for asking. A lot of people don't know about private market flood insurance. They only understand through FEMA, which is the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. However, there are 3 big restrictions that the NFIP has that private market doesn't. One is that the home can only be a max coverage of $250,000. So if you think about that, especially in our neck of the woods, there's not many homes, Megan, that's going to require flood insurance that's going to be under $250,000. So immediately FEMA is out. The second one is that it's going to require an elevation certificate. If people who have experience getting an elevation certificate, that's not an easy process, but that it would be required through the NFIP. And then third, it's if it's a loan closing, we can get the date waived to be able to process it at closing. There's no waiting period. The 30-day waiting period is out, but once you purchase the home and later decide you want flood insurance because maybe you see a big storm coming or you watch the news, it's a 30-day waiting period. So on the private side of flood insurance that you can only get through going a broker like me, is that there is a 10-day waiting period versus 30. Unless it's a loan closing, we can still waive that and process it for the closing. It's $2 million versus $250,000. So that gives us a lot more availability to be able to place that insurance need. And then there's no elevation certificate required. The only time we might see an elevation certificate being required is if it's new construction and it's not updated yet. And that really goes into that January 1st of this year, all of the FEMA maps changed. So it used to be a low risk of X, X100 or X500, meaning that X is kind of the middle of the road. You're not in a high risk flood zone. Then there's X100, which is even lower risk, meaning your home is expected to flood once every 100 years. And then the bottom, like we're not expecting, it's called X500, every 500 years it will flood. But that's the biggest thing. Cost is a big play in that. It could be very expensive going through the NFIP, very inexpensive going through private market.
So obviously I work with a lot of buyers and I never know, like, where can I find this flood map? Can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. So FEMA.gov is the best way to go. FEMA.gov will give you the flood maps. Very important that if you are purchasing a house and it's flood insurance is being mentioned, it's just a good thing to check it for yourself. Because on January 1st of this year, Megan, all the flood maps changed by FEMA. So what used to be AE, which is high risk, we are now seeing X, which is low risk, and what used to be X, which is low risk, is now AE. So that leads me to tell agents and everybody out there that if you're buying a home and it's in a higher risk flood zone and you know you're gonna need flood insurance, if the seller currently has a policy for flood on their home, you can transfer that by calling the company directly to save you a lot of money because of the price, as long as the flood zone has remained the same. You can also call a broker like me. We have technology where within 2 minutes, I can tell you what zone it is and if it's gonna be required or not. So the sellers and the buyers, especially the buyers, know exactly what they're getting into, maybe before they go under contract, so they don't get a big surprise after going under contract and seeing an outrageous price.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, so Jason, can you tell us where we can find your book here?
Absolutely. My book can be found simply on my website, www.connorinsurancegroup.com. Of course, Connor is spelled with an ER. Scroll about halfway down my website. You'll be able to download this ebook for absolutely free. Of course, you can always call me with any questions as well, 615-900-0923.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for having me.
If you have any specific questions about flood insurance, please be sure to leave them in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.